Hello everyone, this is your professor, Danny Araneta Cabulay, on the course Accountancy Research. This is week number 5 and we are now in video lecture number 25. First things first, may I encourage you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Danny Cabulay, and please hit the notification button to make sure that you get updated and you will get notified every time I will post a new video lecture. Okay, so you will not miss anything. Very important, subscribe and hit the notification button. For this episode, we will be talking about the very important topic of statistical sampling. Ano ba tong statistical sampling? Some of my students and researchers would sometimes ask me, Sir Danny, mag-i-interview kami ng 3 experts. Sufficient na ba yon? Pwede na ba? Or sometimes they'd ask me, we're going to conduct a survey and is 150 respondents all right? Again, the answer there is, it depends. It depends, okay? So we will talk about the different statistical sampling techniques in this episode. But first, let us define what is statistical sampling. Okay? So ano ba itong statistical sampling? Statistical sampling is drawing a set of observations through a specific methodology or technique from a population distribution. For example, you're supposed to investigate 10,000 vouchers and you're trying to find out if fraud happens in a particular organization. Kung merong nakawan na nagaganap, kaya tinitignan mo yung mga vouchers. Okay? 10,000 vouchers, that's a lot. It will take you months before you could even complete them. Okay? So, maybe you can just look at 400 and looking at 400 in 2 to 3 days, you're done. You would already prove if there's fraud or no fraud. Then you have achieved your objective in a very short period of time. You don't have to spend months looking at vouchers. Okay? So, if it is a method that allows us to get information about a population based on the statistics from a subset of population called the sample without having to investigate every individual item. Okay? Take note of that. Now, let's look at an example. In an audit on foreign exchange transactions of a bank, it was noted that 47,320 transactions transpired during the year. So gusto natin malaman kung maayos ba itong mga foreign exchange transactions. Ano ba itong forex or foreign exchange transactions? Sa bangko, tayo ay nagpapapalit ng dollars. Tayo rin ay kuminsan bumibili ng dollars kapag tayo magta-travel abroad, kailangan may baon tayong dollars. Or kapag may binili tayo sa abroad, babayaran natin ng dollars, bank-to-bank ang transaction, dollars ang ipambabayad natin. And then, kapag tayo naman ay nagpapadala ng pera from abroad to the Philippines, dollars din ang pinapadala. So those are examples of foreign exchange transactions. At itong bangko na to, ang dami palang transactions, no? Especially during this pandemic na kailangan ng mga tao ng pera. 47,320 transactions, all on foreign exchange. It may be virtually extremely tedious and difficult to check all these documents due to the sheer large number kasi napakalaki ng volume. Okay? So maybe you can just investigate a smaller number. Okay? Not everything will be inspected. Thus, a statistical sampling might be the wise move to pursue this study. Instead of conducting a survey of all the forex transactions, the researcher may simply check on 397 transactions only, no? Using the Sloven's formula. Ano ba tong Sloven's formula? Ituturo ko sa inyo mamaya. Okay? But first, let's look at the more basic sampling techniques. Take note, kapag inimbestigahan mo lahat ng items, that is what you call 100% sampling, also called perfect sampling. Kailan natin ginagamit ng perfect sampling? Kapag maliit lang yung number at saka madali naman siyang pag-aralan. For example, gusto natin mag-inventaryo ng kotse, yung mga kotse na pag-aari ng isang kumpanya. Based on the books, nakita natin na 10 lang ang kanilang sasakyan. 10 lang pala eh. At saka madali namang hanapin yung 10 na yan. So therefore, we can check all the 10. Kasi in less than 1 hour, na-inspect mo na lahat yung 10 kotse na yan. So madali siyang gawin at saka maliit lang yung number na pinag-uusapan. Hindi libo, hindi daan, okay? So we're talking about a few items only and they're easy to execute, no? So then you use perfect sampling or 100% sampling. Let's look at another technique, random sampling. This is also called simple random sampling. This technique assumes that every individual is chosen entirely by chance and each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. This is the most direct method of probability sampling. However, it comes with a caveat as it may not select enough individuals with the attributes of interest. Sabi mo, o sige, pimili tayo ng 10, pero 10 may not be enough. Baka kailangan 30. Okay? So, we have to use our judgment there. Okay, what is good enough? So random sampling is common, but be careful. We have to be very careful in pegging a number. Okay, let's look at an example. A hospitality industry research undertaking seeks to estimate the budget allocated by 5-star hotels in the Philippines on 3 expenses: employee training, consultancy services, and advertising. Alam niyo itong mga 5-star hotels, also called deluxe hotels, marami talaga silang gastos, no, para to keep their operations running. And the researcher is interested to find out magkano ba ang ginagasta ng mga 5-star hotels na to sa pagsasanay, sa pagtitraining ng kanilang mga empleyado, luma at bagong empleyado. And then, pag may mga problema silang mabibigat, they seek the help of consultants. Magkano binabayad nila for a year sa mga consultants na to? And then advertising, of course. So we see advertising in billboards, in television, magazines, newspapers, and social media. So may bayad lahat yan. So pinag-aaralan itong 3 expenses na to. If there are 54 5-star hotels around the country, it will take some time to complete the study. Maybe more than a year. If all the hotels were included in the study. So wag natin interviewin lahat itong 54 hotels. Maybe a just small number will suffice, okay? Besides, some of these hotels may not be cooperative and may not be willing to disclose data to non-governmental entities such as privately funded research units. Thus, the researcher may decide to gather data only from 12 properties. Yun ang kanyang naging decision, 12 lang. Enough na yon. Using random sampling, provided na itong 12 hotels ay nanggagaling sa iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas. Okay? Let's look at the template that I've shown you in the PowerPoint slides. So, ang piniling hotel, 12, Manila Hotel in Manila, Dusit Thani in Davao, Marco Polo in Cebu, Bellevue in Bohol, Crimson in Muntinlupa, Widows in Pampanga, Grand Hyatt in Taguig, Conrad Hotel in Pasay, Okada in Parañaque, EDSA Shangri-La in Mandaluyong, Crown Plaza in Pasig, and Raffles Hotel in Makati. Notice that karamihan ng mga pinili ay nasa Metro Manila. Why? Because majority of 5-star hotels, about 70% of 5-star hotels in the Philippines are located in Metro Manila. That is why. Although alam natin may mga 5-star hotels sa ibang mga regions, but hindi sila madami. Mas madami pa rin talaga ang nasa Metro Manila. Kaya ganyan ang naging pagpili ng 12 hotels. Now let's look at the second type of statistical sampling. Yun ay tatawagin natin na systematic sampling. In this type of technique, the first item or individual is selected randomly and the succeeding items or individuals are selected using a definite and consistent sampling interval. Okay? Systematic sampling is more convenient than simple random sampling. Okay? However, it may also lead to bias should there be an underlying pattern in which we are selecting items from the given population. Okay? So let's look at one example. A factory would like to determine the effectiveness of a new quality control mechanism put in place 2 months ago. If the factory produces 24,000 cartons of products a month or 1,000 cartons per day, the quality assurance manager decided to inspect 2% of its monthly output, or 1 for every 50 cartons to make sure na quality yung mga product na nilalabas nila. A total of 480 cartons will be inspected by the quality control supervisor. Okay? Before loading them to the delivery trucks. Okay? Here is an example of a list of carton numbers due for inspection. Do you see the pattern? Let's look at the slide. Okay? The first one is 15. So yung first batch, carton number 1 up to carton number 50, ang pinili niya ay 15. Yung sumunod na carton ay 65, and then 115, and then 165, and then 215, and then 265, and so on and so forth. Hanggang sa maging 48 na cartons na siya. Do you see the pattern? It's usually the 15th carton out of a batch of 50, yun ang pinipili. Okay? There is a pattern. Okay? Yan ang ibig sabihin ng systematic sampling. There is a system. Okay? The next type of sampling is called stratified sampling. In this technique, one must divide the population into subgroups or what you call strata based on their attributes or traits. Then select the sample or samples per strata. I'll give you an example. To apply this technique, take the case of Hyatt International, a global hotel brand with over 1,000 properties in 68 countries, which subjects all hotels to management review once a year. Ano ba itong management review? Ito yung tinatawag din na quality audit. So lahat itong mga hotels, ino-audit sila kung tama ba yung services nila, nagko-comply ba sila sa standards, etc. So every year, ini-inspect. Pero will they inspect all? No, they will not inspect all. They will only inspect a sample. Okay? So 68 countries, 1,000 hotels. Okay? So thus approximately 9% of the hotels or 90 properties are scheduled for quality audit each month. So buwan-buwan, 90 hotels ang kanilang i-inspectin. So they will deploy several teams of inspectors or quality auditors. This number is important not only to determine the sample size or coverage of work to be done, but it also helps in scheduling the audits and planning the number of audit teams to be deployed in each continent. Kasi ang mundo divided into continents. There's Asia Pacific, there's Africa, etc. etc. So itong mga teams na to, umiikot lang sila dun sa continent na yon para hindi masyado magastos in terms of airfare. Okay? Kasi syempre magbabiyahe sila. So look at the table that I showed in the PowerPoint slides. What would be the distribution per continent? Okay, so for North America, you would need to inspect 50 hotels per month. Okay? In Central and South America, 10 hotels per month. In Europe, 13. In Africa and Middle East, 9. And then in Asia and Oceania, 12. Okay? So a total of 96 hotels will be inspected at least. Okay? So yan ang distribution ng hotels to be inspected. Now let's look at the third sampling technique. Cluster sampling. In this type of sampling, the subgroups are selected as sampling unit rather than as individuals. Okay? The entire population is divided into subgroups or clusters. Then, clusters are randomly selected to be included in the study. Okay? Let's look at an example of cluster sampling. In an action research undertaken by SM Supermarket that is with owned and managed stores under the brands Hypermart, Save More, SM Supermarket, Alpha Mart, and Walter Mart. Pag-aari na pala nila ang Walter Mart or Walmart at saka ang Alpha Mart. Okay? For the first quarter of the year, wherein the company wanted to determine the efficiency of the new point-of-sale system installed in all stores 2 months ago. Alam niyo yung point-of-sale system, yan yung cashier register. Pag nagbabayad tayo, di ba may pinipindot yung mga kahera, yun ang POS or point-of-sale system. Okay? It's a modern registry of cash. Okay? Each store has a range of 6 to 40 workstations and there are 934 stores nationwide. Ang dami pala. Okay? Herewith is a sample of the distribution of the outlets across the 5 brands, assuming 5 stores per brand will be included in the study. So take note ha. O, tignan natin yung table. So, SM Supermarket, 5 lang ang i-inspectin dyan. Ermita in Manila, Lanang, Mabolo in Cebu, Taguig, and Baguio. Sa Hypermart, they will inspect Haro, Iloilo, Ormoc, Mall of Asia, Mandaluyong, Naik, Cavite, Naga, Camiling, General Santos, Pasig, Angeles, and then for Alpha Mart, Imus, Marilao, Batangas City, Park Avenue in Pasay, and Sampaloc, Manila. For Walter Mart, Cabanatuan, Makati, Subic, Balanga, and Pasay. Okay, so take note, 25 stores ang kanilang i-inspectin. Okay? 5 per brand. Okay? Yan ang cluster sampling. Then meron tayong tinatawag na convenience sampling. This sampling technique is probably the easiest to implement because the respondents are chosen based on their availability, willingness to participate. Convenience sampling may be prone to bias because the sample may not be a fair representation of the specific attributes of the population. Kung minsan pag pupunta tayo sa mall, tapos bumababa tayo sa escalator, kung minsan may mga taong nakaabang sa atin sa escalator, inaabangan tayo, tapos pag nakita nila tayo, sir, pwede po ba kayo ma-interview? Yan. Kasi ikaw yung nadat na nila, ikaw yung inabutan nila. It's convenient to interview you kasi nandyan ka na eh. So, yun ang ibig sabihin ng convenience sampling. Okay? So, pag kayo ay ini-interview, kayo ay nakita sa mall, convenience sampling ang ginagamit nila. Okay? Next example, let's look at that. For example, if the Philippine Cooperative Center, headquartered in Quezon City, would like to find out the best practices in good governance in selected cooperatives around the country, it would most likely choose the large ones who have willingly participated in previous research projects of the center. Kasi yung mga malalaking cooperative, sila talaga yung very cooperative, okay? Sila ay nagtitiwala sa mga research. So, nagpa-participate talaga sila. Pero yung mga maliliit, hindi sila masyado cooperative. So, it's more convenient to invite the large cooperatives to participate in a study, okay, or research. Now, the next type of sampling is called quota sampling. This technique prescribes a set of characteristics for an individual or item is chosen to comprise the desired sample. In quota sampling, the selected sample may not be representative of the population. So, meron tayong minimum na ginagamit na figure, no? Kaya quota, no? So, it could be at least 100. So, any number above 100 is okay. Let's look at an example. If the Philippine Institute of CPA's national office would like to undertake an action research to find out the effectiveness of its webinars and the satisfaction level of participants, the association would most likely do an online survey using SurveyMonkey. Okay? Alam niyo yung SurveyMonkey? That is an app. Okay? So you can use that in your research kung kayo ay gagamit ng survey. SurveyMonkey, to be answered by all the members of the association. Given the time constraint, it will consider the first 500 submissions. The first 500 na sumagot dun sa SurveyMonkey na survey would be considered enough. Okay? Kasi the quota is 500. So there is a number na dapat nating ma-meet pag gumamit tayo ng quota sampling. Minimum of 500. So that would be considered to be adequate number of respondents to the survey. Okay? Now, let's look at another type of sampling technique, judgment sampling, or sometimes called judgmental sampling, also known as selective or purposive sampling. This technique depends mainly on the judgment of the experts when choosing the respondents or participants to the study. Pinipili nila, hindi siya magandang interviewin. Ito, mag-okay to interviewin. So, pinipili lang natin talaga. Para din siyang random, kaya lang meron tayong purpose. There is an underlying purpose, okay? What is good for the study and what is not good for the study. This is obviously biased and may have a sample that does not represent the characteristics of the population. There's the danger in using judgmental sampling. You have to justify. Example, a large BPO firm with 4,200 plus employees nationwide is planning to offer an early retirement to employees who have already earned at least 15 years of service. This is one way of streamlining the workforce during the COVID pandemic, and as well as creating some vacancies, accommodating new blood into the company. Kaya sila nagpapa-early retirement para yung mga matatanda na, malalaki na ang sweldo, pa-retire na kasi lumalaki ang gastos. So, nagkakaroon ng vacancy, ang hire natin, yung mga bata, mga fresh graduate, kasi mura pa ang sweldo nila. So, mababa lang ang payroll natin. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Kaya pag nag-offer ng early retirement, that is a way of cost-cutting actually. Okay? The company is offering a worthwhile package and a series of support services to those availing of early retirement package. Like, tuturuan sila paano magnegosyo kasi kung may makukuha silang malaking halaga sa pagre-retire nila, baka biglang mawala na lang yan. Okay? Kailangan paikutin nila yung pera nila. Pension or retirement package. Okay? So, ang mangyayari dito, tignan natin ang isa pang sample ng sampling technique, yung tinatawag natin na snowball sampling. Pag sinabing snowball sampling technique, in an online survey, okay, initiated by non-sectarian university, pwede kasi na mag-start muna tayo ng 1%, tapos after 1 week, gagawin natin 2%, after 3 weeks, magiging 3%. So, lumalaki ng lumalaki yung sample size. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng snowball sampling. Okay? So, let's look at an example. Okay? So, in an online survey initiated by a non-sectarian university to determine the feasibility of offering new online graduate programs in the next 2 years, it targets only a small sample of 50 professional. No? 50 lang yung kanilang interviewin. Mga managers, professionals within Metro Manila on the first 10 days of January. Upon receipt of the electronic survey forms, the research unit decided to expand the coverage to target an additional 120. So that means 50 naging 120. Total of 170 na yung kanilang respondents. Similar type of questions ang tinanong. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao provinces in the next 10 days. So, ibig sabihin, lumalaki yung number of sample size based on judgment. Finally, the coverage was increased further to this time to 270 professionals. No? So dati 170, ngayon ginawa na nilang 270. Okay? Isasama na yung mga foreigners. Now, a total aggregate of 440. Okay? So, 440 na yung tinarget na mga professionals. Okay, 170 plus 270. Okay, 440. So, yun ang tinatawag na snowball effect. Remember, 50, naging 170, and then naging 440. Okay, that is what snowball effect means. Now, ituturo ko na sa inyo yung, excited na ba kayo? Sloven's formula. Ito, of course, na-invento to ni Sloven. Okay? Ang formula ay small n equals capital N divided by 1 plus big N multiplied by E squared. Ano ba itong mga to? Yung small n, yan yung sample size. Yan yung unknown. Yan yung ating hinahanap. Pangalawa, the big N represents the population. And then, 1 is a constant. The small letter E is the margin of error. Okay? So, kung mas maliit yung margin of error, that means mas mapagkakatiwalaan yung ating survey. Kung malaki ang margin of error, medyo hindi reliable yon. Kaya 10% margin of error is not good. Usually acceptable ay 3 to 5%. Pwede na yon. Of course, yung 1%, 2%, that's fantastic. Okay? Pero tandaan natin, habang lumalaki yung margin of error, mas kumukonti yung ating kailangan na imbestigahan. Pero pag mas maliit ang margin of error, it's going to be a larger number. A larger sample size. Okay? So let's look at an example. Let's apply this. For example, a consultant was commissioned by a national political party to perform several services such as set up a transparent and efficient accounting system to record and analyze all incoming donations, outgoing disbursements, develop a comprehensive budget to launch the campaign of its national candidates in compliance with the Commission on Elections rules and regulations, and determine the viability of these candidates through a perception preference survey. The registered population of the Philippines as of 2021 is 57 million across 81 provinces. The error of margin considered is only 2%. Calculate the number of voters to be included in the survey for the third service. Okay? So, apply natin. 43,750 divided by 1 plus 57 million multiplied by 0.02 squared. Ano yung 0.02? That is 2%. 2% is 0.02. Kaya kung 5%, 0.05. Okay? So, the answer is 2,499.89 or 2,500 voter respondents. That should be enough. At least minimum of 2,500 voters. Okay? So, for the last exercise, here is a series of things that I want you to calculate. Please calculate the Sloven's formula. Calculate the sample size for the following research projects using the Sloven's formula. For example, the specimen number of companies, 184. 4% is the margin of error. You will interview 96 managers, 5% margin of error. How many would be the sample size? There are 1,591 barangays, margin of error, 2%. How many barangays do you need to include in your study? Inventories, 13,702, 3% only. And finally, competitors that you need to benchmark on, 55, but use 5% margin of error. So, fill in all these question marks, 5 sagot ang kailangan ko. Answer that in the YouTube comments section, okay? Within 6 days, okay? So, you need to answer this on or before September 18, that is Saturday. Because Sunday, I will be checking your papers, okay? So for your project, task number 5 on methodology, I want you to answer as a group, no? As a group. So your group will give me only one answer. Identify the research technique your group will use in your research project. Maybe techniques, okay? Para triangulated, tatlo, okay? Identify the respondents or participants or subjects, it depends, no? Remember natin, no? Tinatawag natin na participants kapag ito ay isang activity, respondent pag ito ay survey or interview, okay? Subject pag ito ay document, okay? Or companies. Identify the statistical sampling technique, calculate or state the sample size, how many respondents, submit your answers through your group's group chat on or before September 20. O September 20 pala ang deadline nito, okay? 9 p.m., okay? Now, here are sample answers. For the research techniques, you could be using documentary analysis, interview, and observation. For the subjects, you will use government websites, and then for respondents, you will use managers with 2 years experience. Sampling technique, convenience sampling. And then finally, sample size, maybe you will investigate 6 government websites and interview 5 managers. Okay? So, yan ang gusto kong sample ng sagot. Okay? So, I will end now with a quotation. Because this is the end of the week. Remember this, the most beautiful things in the world cannot be touched. They must be felt by the heart. And I will say goodbye using the Irish word or Gaelic language for goodbye. Slan. Slan is goodbye in Irish. So without much further ado, this ends now our video lecture number 25, the last lecture for this week number 5. Slan!